Traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today, we're going to be doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. This is actually the second I would say highly contested presidential election that we've had in United States history. As of right now, I'm recording this video on Saturday. Some of the media have actually reported that President-elect, I should say, Biden has won the election, and Trump, the current president, has lost the election, even though there's a lot of outstanding legal challenges that the Trump campaign has put on the table. I have a thinking now, however, that it really doesn't matter who wins at this point, whether it actually is Biden or whether it actually is Trump. I think there's literally a integrity issue now with our elections and the system in the U.S., which I think is going to be a much bigger problem because 50% essentially of people voted for Biden, 50% voted for Trump. And I wanted to do another video that's a little bit more in depth about the subject because I think, the U.S. essentially now has turned into a banana republic. Venezuela, for example, has voted in President in Maduro, but every international community stated that Guaido actually is the current president. That's kind of what's happening now, where Biden, a lot of the media and now international countries are saying that he's the elected president, whereas people on the other side are saying that he's not. So it's going to be interesting to see how things work out. You guys are going to watch this video probably on Sunday. I think Monday we're going to have a bit of a down day, most likely, because under the circumstances. So the month of October was the worst performing month for stocks since March. Obviously, we had the coronavirus cases surging, the failures of the stimulus talks, and also a slump for the major tech firms in regards to the quarterly earnings reports. We had the New York Stock Exchange, the NYSE, regain to be the leader, let's say, compared with NASDAQ, and attracting bigger blank check company IPOs. To date, the firms have raised $66 billion on the NYSE compared to just $61 billion on the NASDAQ. Monday, the markets closed higher. Tuesday, we saw higher markets as well. Wednesday, we closed even higher, which was the third straight day of gains. And Thursday, we had far, far higher. And this is actually the best week going into quite a long time. I have the date here. I just can't find it. But it's one of the best weeks that we've had in months. Friday, we closed mixed. And for the week, the U.S. Dow had 6.87% positive. It still was down in October for 4.6%, even though it should be still up for the year. The S&P 500 was up for the week 7.32%. S&P 500 was down 2.8% for the month of October. NASDAQ is up 9.01% for the week, whereas for the month of October, it's down 2.3%. Buffett, big news as well. Warren Buffett, which has always been against stock buybacks, actually bought a record $9 billion in stock buybacks at his company, Berkshire Hathaway. This to me kind of shows the mentality of somebody like Warren Buffett, shows what happens or what's happening currently in the market, where we have a situation where he has a lot of cash in bank accounts and he's not deploying that to buy companies or stock or things like that. So he definitely thinks that everything is overvalued, and that's why he's essentially buying his own stock, because he has so much money he doesn't even know what to do with it. European markets overall are higher this week as well. Italy, the biggest winner at 9.68%. Latin American markets are mostly positive as well. Santiago, the index in Santiago was at 7.69% positive. Canada was 4.08%. Africa and the Middle East, mostly positive as well, with South Africa being the biggest winner at 9.09%. Then we had Asia and Far East, Hong Kong, the HSCEI, say that 3 times fast, was positive most than others at 6.67%. Huge news. I should say huge movement for Bitcoin and crypto markets this week. Bitcoin went up 15.58% to 15,743. Remember, the high was literally, if I'm not mistaken, around 18 or 19,000. I don't know. I don't have the exact number here on me, but remember that was December 2017. I think it could go just a little bit higher, but I don't think it's going to go too much higher. I still don't think it's going to be at 50K. Remember, all the analysts are talking about 50K, 100K, 500K. Still don't, I told you guys at the beginning of last year, beginning of this year, it's not going to get to 50K, at least not yet. DOJ, Department of Justice federal agents also seized $1 billion worth of Bitcoins. There were 69,370 Bitcoins that they seized from associations with the Silk Road. The founder of the Silk Road, which is Ross Ulbricht, was sentenced to life in prison in 2015, and this was a dark web where there were criminals were buying and selling things. So now the government is $1 billion richer. Financial and banking news, S&P Global Ratings has global debt as a percentage of GDP at 265% in 2020. This hasn't been seen since the 2009 financial crisis, and we should have a rising number of insolvencies and defaults as well. They're saying that a near-term disaster is not likely due to the fact that the economic recovery is underway in the world, in addition to the fact that we have a potential vaccine in 2021 and a lot of advantageous debt financing, meaning that we have the historically low interest rates. But I'm letting you guys know now, this is not going to end well. Bank of England is pumping another $195 billion into the UK economy to try to avoid a double-dip recession. They are going to have another 1 month of lockdowns now. They decided to do that, especially in all of Europe. They're talking about lockdowns, but UK has definitely confirmed it. They're keeping the interest rates at a record low 0.1% and also buying $1.1 trillion worth of UK bonds, but they are also expecting a contraction, a decline for quarter four GDP growth. Commodities, U.S. crude is up 3.77% at $37.14. It's still down just under 39% for the year. International crude, which is called Brent, is up 5.31% at $39.45. It's still down just over 40% for the year. Obviously, this has to do with a lot of political uncertainty, in addition to the fact that we still don't have the economic recovery because a lot of people are talking about the lockdowns again, especially in Europe. Now, remember, the U.S. as a whole is the largest economy in the world. After that, we have China. And then the third as a whole is literally Europe. So we're literally taking off by them shutting down a huge chunk of the world economy. And due to the fact that the world economy being so mixed now, we have a situation where it's not going to end well because you can't just shut part. It's like in your house, like you shut off the kitchen or shut off a bedroom and it just doesn't work right. Other than that, precious metals are higher for the week. Gold was up 3.78% to $1,950. The all-time high for gold was $2,074, which was set this year. Gold and copper had their best weeks since July, with gold being up 30% in 2020. For you guys that have been following me for a while now, I've been talking about gold and silver. Best time to buy isn't when it's near its peak, right? This is why I was talking about this years ago. And I just actually closed out a few positions, the mining positions in silver. We had that huge surge. Silver went up 8.08% for the week at $25.66. The high of silver, the record high, some only report the $48.48 in 2011, but the actual high, especially based for inflation, was $49.45 in 1980. So that value of what $49.45 would actually be worth now is astronomical compared to the recent high that it actually just made. That's why silver should definitely, well, they're both going to go up, especially silver and gold, but silver, in my opinion, has a little bit better numbers, let's say, because it's cheaper. Political news, although the U.S. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden remains ahead of Trump nationally and in battleground states, there's a lot of polls that have not decided the swing states. As I mentioned to you guys in the beginning of the video, there's a lot of people in the media now that are reporting that Joe Biden is the presidential elect, that he won the election, even though there are some outstanding challenges by Donald Trump in the campaign. In the U.S., 99 million early votes were cast in person by mail. As of Monday night, that's about 72.3% of the entire turnout in 2016, represented about 40% of all Americans who can participate in a U.S. election. Luis Arce, which is a Bolivia sworn president on Sunday after a landslide victory. As an economic minister, he actually said that he pushed for nationalization of a lot of sectors. So that means that Bolivia is probably not going to do well since they're going in that direction, even though the U.S. is heading in that direction as well. The Bolivia had one of the best growth rates in Latin America, 4.6% 4.6% annual growth in the last few years, but that was mostly because of the commodities boom. A lot of these Latin American countries, since they haven't developed their economies, they're mostly based on mining. For example, in Bolivia is definitely the case. The problem is when the commodities don't keep going up, right? They inflate their budgets. They spend money to be able to get votes, and then the high commodity prices go up. That's what happened in Venezuela also, for example. In economic news, U.S. manufacturing activity in October jumped to its highest level in 2 years, with the ISM manufacturing PMI rising to 59.3. It's a move higher than September of 3.9%. U.S. private companies added only 365,000 jobs in October when the expectation was 600,000. So that indicates slower economic growth. Americans are also filing new unemployment claims. That number actually fell slightly for the week ending October 31st. It's at 751,000 seasonally adjusted, and they were expecting 758,000. So we have some good news, some not so good news. Other than that, U.S. employers hired the fewest workers in 5 months in October, with non-farm payrolls increasing by 638,000 jobs last month, rising from a 672,000 in September. And the unemployment rate, which is a good number, actually fell to 6.9%. Chile's economic activity was down 5.3% in September on year-on-year basis. They're not the biggest economy, let's say, in Latin America, but it's one of the most important due to the fact that Chile is actually the only first world country in Latin America. Central Bank as well reported that on Monday. On the previous month, they did 5.1% growth. In corporate news, Wendy's saw shares fall 5.83% on Wednesday to $21.79 after their revenue increased but fell short of the $454 million that was expected. Qualcomm, which is the huge U.S.-based semiconductor company, adjusted their income projections to $6.5 billion versus 5.93 billion. Their shares surged 12.75% on Thursday. Their net income, imagine this, 76% increase in net income for them. Their shares are up 65% in 2020. U.S. online real estate database firm Zillow, which I'm sure all of you guys are looking at for those of you guys that want to purchase houses. Obviously, nobody's going physically to view houses, right? So everybody's doing it online. Their shares went up 14.86% on Friday. It went to $119.58 as they posted the biggest earnings on record as the online real estate booms during the pandemic. Their shares are up close to 158% in 2020. They have a market cap of about $24 billion. And this was actually really interesting news. There's a pharmaceutical company called Biogen, which reported that they submitted to the FDA, have been showing to prove some effectiveness in their drug. It's an experimental drug for Alzheimer's. Once they got that approval, their shares skyrocketed 20% so far in 2020, and the actual stock on Wednesday went up 43.97% on the news. So if you guys have some shares in Biogen, you should be happy for yourself because it skyrocketed. Other than that, in trade news, China is ordering traders to stop purchasing as of Friday at least 7 categories of Australian commodities, including coal, barley, copper ore, sugar, timber, wine, and lobster, as the tensions ratchet up between China and also Australia. European lawmakers are stating that They stated on Friday that time is running out to be able to make a new free trade agreement between the UK and the EU as well before the 11th month transition period actually stops and the UK officially departures from the bloc. In technology news and investment news, the Shanghai Stock Exchange suspended Ant Group's A-share IPO on the STAR market due to the fact that they're saying that it's a change in regulation. There's some conspiracy theories that this is the way of China getting back at Jack Ma, but it was going to be the biggest ICO. It was going to be the biggest IPO in history at $37 billion, and it was actually oversubscribed by quite a lot of money. So now that's on hold. Wednesday, big news for Uber and also Lyft. Projections in California have decided both companies should be exempt from labor laws. It was aimed at changing the classification of the workers of Uber and Lyft, and obviously this would have effects in the broader market for other people that work for these kind of companies that aren't quote unquote, they call them the gig economy. They stated that they should be exempt from the labor laws, meaning that people can continue to work as independent contractors instead of employees. Now, Uber went up 14.59% for the week on that news. It's up 38% in 2020, as I got a bee in my hair. And Lyft surged 11.28%. They're down 32% in 2020. Now, Uber is actually projecting that they're going to have profit soon, whereas Lyft has much worse numbers compared to Uber, and that's the difference in the stock price. That's the bug. That's the bug that keeps getting me. After U.S. civil unrest failed to materialize in major American cities due to election results, a lot of gun and ammunition companies saw shares losses. Smith & Wesson brands fell 11.86%, even though they're still up 117% in 2020. Sturm Ruger went down 10.72% for the week, even though they're this thing keeps like getting right on me. Even though this Sturm Ruger went up 33.74% in 2020. Overall for the week as well, Jeff Bezos sold $3 billion worth of Amazon stock as he takes advantage of the skyrocketing price of Amazon shares. He didn't explain why he was selling the actual shares, but a lot of times what he has done is actually put that money into his Blue Origin space firm and other business ventures as well. There's some rumors as well that he might buy CNN. And in international events, large swaths of Europe are going to lock down again while other nations start to resist the movement. Remember, Sweden never shut down. They never required masks. And now they're not even having a second wave. South Dakota and the United States, the state, also never shut down as well. The UK is announcing a 1-month national lockdown, as I mentioned to you guys before. They also stated that workers that are temporarily laid off are going to receive 80% of their pay. Excuse me. And in other countries as well, like Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, and Ireland, are also going to put in similar pandemic containment regimes. The U.S. has recorded 102,831 cases on Wednesday, which is the first time that we've had more than 100,000 cases since the beginning of the pandemic. Overall, 9.4 million Americans have been infected with COVID-19. But remember that the mortality rate, or the percentage of people that actually survive the disease, is at 99.96%. According to the CDC. Also, more than 80% of the deaths are from people that are over 65 years old. So if you're young, especially under 65, you really have a very small chance of actually dying. So it's very infectious, it seems like, the disease based on the CDC numbers, but not deadly like we originally thought. Tuesday, Hurricane Eta struck Nicaragua with winds of 150 miles per hour. 70 people died. Thousands were stranded due to the fact that it brought in torrential rains. And since they don't have very good infrastructure in Nicaragua or the Central American region, that was mainly the problem, due to the fact that a lot of people had mudslides and also rivers and bridges collapsing. So it was more a situation of infrastructure rather than the actual hurricane itself. Austria admits intolerable mistakes in handling the intelligence when the jihadist, the Muslim Arab extremist, killed 4 people in the capital of Vienna on Monday, stating it could have considered him a greater threat and monitored him more closely. They now have closed 2 of the mosques, extremists mosques there in Vienna. And they're stating that they could close down more. Friday, and prosecutors in Spain's Supreme Court stated that they're going to open up a preliminary investigation into former King Juan Carlos's business dealings. Nothing like a little corruption in Spain, like we see now in the U.S. as well. After a report by National Anti-Money Laundering Agency, a report came out, so now they're opening up an investigation into that as well. And India's top military commander on Friday stated that a tense border standoff with Chinese forces in the Western Himalayas could spark a larger conflict as senior commanders continue to have their 8th round of talks. And unusual facts this week: voters in the U.S. state of Oregon, Oregon, have stated to decriminalize hard drugs via a ballot initiative called Measure 110. They're going to decriminalize the personal possession of less than 1 gram of heroin or methamphetamines, 2 grams of cocaine, 12 grams of psilocybin mushrooms, 40 doses of LSD, oxycodone or methadone, and 1 gram or 5 pills of MDMA as well. And last but not least, over 500,000 Australians signed a petition to be able to investigate the dominance of Rupert Murdoch's media conglomerate, which includes, for example, Fox in the U.S. They're going to probably investigate the Australian side. But a petition to Parliament launched by former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd just 3 weeks ago, it closed on Wednesday, and it calls for a royal commission, which is Australia's highest form of public inquiry, as they're saying it investigating threats to media diversity and also accusing the media of encouraging deliberately polarizing and politically manipulated views. I wonder where we see that in the U.S. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next week.